Hello, welcome back from the break. I see people are drifting their way in. So we were granted half an hour to talk about payments. In Seattle last year, we took the stage and gave a bit of a 15 minutes around what Stripe is seeing in other industries, what kind of payment innovations happening out there. The conversation definitely hasn't gone away, but we thought we'd shake things up a little bit and hear the hotelier's perspective. Like, why is payments interesting? How does it affect the customer journey? How does it affect the money that hotels can make? And what's going to be in store for the next few years? So delighted to have Rami here from LifeHouse Hotels. As many of you may know, I'm an absolute hotel geek, as I'm sure lots of us in the room are. So I've been enjoying the rise of kind of LifeHouse over the last few years. So welcome. Thanks
so much. Yeah, happy to be here.
First Hedna?
Not my first Hedna, but first time on stage at Hedna.
Very cool.
So I'm very loyal to the organization and what they're doing.
Perfect. Well, look, let's definitely start with some intros. For those that don't know, maybe you could share a little bit about LifeHouse Hotels. What's it all about? What's your vision? Where are you guys heading?
Sure. So, hey, everyone, I'm Rami, founder and CEO of LifeHouse. We're essentially a tech-enabled hotel management company and software company for small, medium-sized independent hotels. So I might get some doses off with that statement, but it's a good proxy for innovation and a good space to start innovating because there are less constraints. And we focus on making small independent hotels more profitable, super easy to operate. And one nuance to small hotels that everyone probably knows is you can't afford staff. And so efficiency is our DNA. So we think about radically efficient hotel operations, from the back office to owner relationships to making guests super efficient with their process. So our kind of DNA is make everybody autonomous, from the hotel staff to the guests, so they don't have to interact with staff. Gonna get a lot of hate email after this for that statement. And even our owners, making them super autonomous, because there's just, again, not enough resources to support every stakeholder in that space. And now we've launched a revenue management system as well, and we've integrated with Stripe Connect to help power a very seamless guest journey, hotel operation, and a very lean hotel operation. And it's we've got about 150 hotels that we power today and growing, I think, pretty quickly.
Very cool, thank you. And for those of you that don't know Stripe, we'll kind of get into that just a little bit. We are a kind of global layer of technology that sit on top of the world's card networks, like ways that you might want to pay. We sit on top of the world's banks, but it really trying to be that one-stop shop of any time you need to be taking money in, moving money around your ecosystem, or paying money out. It's just designed to kind of make that system kind of frictionless. So we support a lot of the big kind of companies in the world, like your Ford, your Hertz's, your Ubers, your Airbnbs. In the hotel space, you'll typically see us in like one of two ways. If you are kind of big enough and you've got your own tech team, you might well try and have a direct relationship with Stripe. Like, hey, let's put it into that checkout so we can start offering Google Pay, Apple Pay, Affirm, Klarna, paying in installments. But we also turn up in most of your hotel chains through your tech partners. So if you've put in any tech around QR codes and F&B apps in the last few years, or digitizing your groups and meetings business, or setting up your kind of spa and wellness software, it'll often be kind of Stripe checkout on the back end. And so we're already working with most, if not well, pretty much all of you in the industry. But still a long way to go, and I think we all know like payments creates just a ton of friction when it comes to reducing your chances of conversion, or that relationship between your HQ and your franchisees and moving money seamlessly around. As Rami is teasing, there's also just a ton of productivity issues. We're pretty much doing the same thing in the back office of payments as we were like 15 years ago, so lots of opportunity to kind of get into that. So why does payments matter? So kind of three or four things Rami and I were chatting about. One is there's just been an explosion in the number of ways that customers want to pay, and that's absolutely not going away, right? Credit cards are not the dominant way that people pay in most countries of the world. Weirdly, I don't know if you know, most governments are actually working on their own payment methods and their own digital currencies. So customers are going to start offering you for all kinds of ways to pay that don't even exist today. So having one checkout where you can offer all of those ways to pay, no matter where the customer is in the world, is going to be table stakes over the next few years. The second thing is that payments create a ton of friction in the guest journey, and I want to focus on that guest journey today. We're not going to spend a ton of time talking about virtual credit cards and kind of dealing with B2B channels, but we know that driving direct bookings is a really critical strategy for hotels. Like that checkout moment is a critical moment to win the guest and not lose them to a third-party channel who may be offering kind of more flexible moments. Also, I'd say the tech is changing fast. Like I spent 7 years at IHG, I spent 5 years at Travelport, but the tech we're talking about now didn't even exist then. So there's a little bit of an education piece of like, well, how are innovative hoteliers bringing this tech to life, and what are some of the things we should be looking out for as we think about our own roadmaps in hotels and the way that we want to innovate around the hotel experience, the guest journey online, etc. Cool. So let's get into it. Like we definitely made a commitment to talk about book direct and contactless check-in journey. So maybe you could just describe what is that guest journey at LifeHouse? What have you built? What are you working on? If we were to come and stay, what's our journey from kind of our first discovery to checkout?
Sure. It may not sound that innovative, but there are some complications therein. But fundamentally, it's about efficiency again. And we don't have a front desk in any of our hotels, and we don't have payment terminals in any of our hotels. And so the journey is fundamentally oriented around how quickly can we convert on the user from, let's say, Google or a meta search provider down to the arrival experience. And so it's very simple. So let's say you start on Google, you go direct to the website, so we've integrated with meta search, and we've built our own booking engine such that the booking engine is on brand, great pictures, great content. Obviously, meta search helps you compare the prices, and then it's 3 clicks to check out. We had a debate about the importance of Apple Pay and those types of things, which we'll launch, but we have a Stripe 1 click, and also it's easy to quickly check out with your stored credit cards. On top of that, once you book the hotel, you can modify your booking autonomously online on our website, so you don't have to call in if you need to cancel or even modify the dates, upgrade a room, et cetera. And then we have various upsells throughout that journey as well. And then once you arrive on property, it's, again, pretty seamless. You can either check in directly on our mobile app or an Android app or a web app and go directly to your room if the hotel has electronic door locks. Some of our hotels in like Nantucket have manual keys. And then finally, I think what's pretty important is in some of our hotels where it's legal, there's no check-in process at all, and you go straight to your room. We take a very e-commerce-centric approach, so when you're on our booking engine, it's just add the room to cart, quickly check out. I don't see the purpose of checking in other than the legal ramifications in certain jurisdictions, and so sometimes there is no check-in process, and you can arrive directly and go directly to your room.
And so 150 hotels today, a lot of them were pre-existing, so you must have gone in and kind of ripped out the old process. If I think about my check-in here or pretty much everywhere, right? It's like I put my credit card into the hotel website, I turn up at the hotel and get asked for my credit card again and my ID, and then I have to sign a piece of paper. Like, I think we tell ourselves that's the way it has to be, and it's not at LifeHouse. So like, how did you get away with ripping that up?
Well, in some jurisdictions, you need proof of identification. And so you arrive at the hotel, and there's an iPad application that takes a photo of your identification. We partner with some software that recognizes the ID there. And the credit card is stored. And so we also we're also primarily transient. There's not really a big consortia or group or corporate negotiated business. So it is easier, I'll say that. But yes, it's arrive and all the information is stored, just like any e-commerce product. And so it's what I was trying to allude to is small independent hotels are easier to innovate in that respect.
Yeah, and how about kind of purchases at property? So again, like the typical hotel experience is, can I sign that to my room, or actually I might just pay for it here and now? I'm thinking back office, just tons of bits of paper, loads of things. So you haven't got any payment terminals. That seems kind of weird.
No payment terminals and no back office. So there's no back office staff at any of our hotels, no finance accounting, no night auditors, no revenue managers, et cetera, et cetera. And so everything starts to the room except F&B. F&B, we do have F&B POS that we partner with. And so F&B is a more hands-on experience, and the server interaction, I think, is important in some cases. And And then on top of that, we have no, I think I mentioned no night auditors. But yeah, there's no folio printout at checkout either. And so it's pretty paper light in that.
And do guests ask for it? Are they like, where the hell's my receipt?
Honestly, it's less guests asking for it. We're a white label operator, and so we'll take over a hotel, retain the GM, et cetera, and the GM will ask for it. More so than the guest. I think guests are very happy, usually transient leisure guests, to receive it in email.
Yeah, very cool. So talk to me about, let's talk kind of sacred cows, right? I'm sure there's lots of skepticism, lots of this can't be done. What were some of your learnings? What are some of the things you just changed when we're just going to push on? And what are some things that just actually you can't change? It's like, oh, I wish I could innovate here, but we're just going to do things the old way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is pretty radical to get rid of the front desk entirely and get rid of the check-in experience. We have some hyper luxury hotels, $2,500 ADRs, where we have that same experience, except instead of a front desk, there's somebody that welcomes you into the hotel and escorts you to the room, and there's no paperwork. When we educate the staff at those properties about that, obviously they have a heart attack initially. And so I think that's a sacred cow we quashed or maintained, or I don't know what the jargon is there, but so that's obviously one thing. I think not having folios is not a sacred cow, but it's surprising how many staff members have been like, well, I want to give my guests whatever they want. It's like they're going to get it in email the second they check out. And also the check-in process, it's amazing how simple it is to just arrive at your room and you click to the card, the RFID door lock, and just go in. I think that's used the world over, but it's pretty reliable in our systems.
One of the things I hear from luxury operators, they're like, I don't want to remove my front desk. That welcome experience is really critical to me. I think they've got this, thinking about this dystopian future where actually it's self-check-in kiosk like it is at McDonald's. And I don't think it is that, right? So talk to me about how do you still provide that welcome experience without a front desk? So
I actually agree that the arrival experience is critical, whether it's luxury or boutique, 4-star lifestyle, whatever you want to call it. And so we retain people in the spaces to welcome guests. It's just not a transactional dynamic. And so they have time, essentially. Our whole MO is how do we make people highly effective at their job with the least amount of training. And so our people that we have are just focused on the guests. They're not focused on computer work or back office stuff. And we've built an iPad application on top of that enables essentially anybody to be a manager on duty at any time. And so they have an iPad, guest walks in, and they walk them to their room, and that's it. And so they can be a bellman, they can be a host, and so it actually enables these smaller boutique properties to have a more luxury service and arrival experience.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, let's talk loyalty. So loyalty program is a pretty important part for a lot of people in the room. I'm really passionate about the rise of subscriptions. Stripe's got a subscription engine to the Aqua brand and the new Ennismore loyalty program kind of Stripe. You guys aren't doing loyalty yet. Where is it on the roadmap? What's your perception of the programs that are out there?
Yeah, I'll probably get some hate mail on this one as well. I think first of all, we operate and power independent hotels, so it's a little trickier to have consistent guest loyalty because there's different types of guests across our portfolio. So I'm actually very supportive of the subscription solutions that people are building throughout the industry. For us, I think you win guest loyalty with a great experience, and so our general approach to it is take away all the administrative stuff from the staff and enable them to deliver a better guest experience. And now they have time to do that versus having to sit behind a desk or cater to administrative tasks. On top of that, yes, I think some of the things that people are doing are interesting, but we haven't got there yet.
All right. Sounds good. Right, quick fire round through some kind of payment themes. Well, firstly, what technologies are you really excited about in the space? So you're obviously building your own tech stack now, but who's kind of inspiring you and thinks doing some interesting stuff?
You're gonna hate the buzzword of AI, but I think there's a lot of exciting opportunity to automate things and enable guests, again, to have a great experience autonomously without expensive staff or hard to find, hard to hire staff. And training is obviously another big cost. We've launched a chat bot, for example, with some of our properties. Some of our on-site staff basically have access to a chat bot. And so they can, and which connects to the PMS, and so they're essentially able to ask really quick questions on the go versus having to get invested in a lot of training. And since there's so much turnover at some of these line level positions, that training ends up being a pretty big cost. So I'm excited about the use of AI to enable more efficient and higher productivity amongst the on-site staff. And I hope, I haven't seen it, Booking.com, Kayak are investors in our company, and I hope that the OTAs invest in making the onboarding and management of OTAs a lot easier, but it's to be seen.
All right. Pay in installments. So many of you know that the last year you've seen like the leading OTAs and Airbnb launch installments products, either their own, just like split your payments over a couple of times, or buy now, pay later, like your Affirms, your Klarnas of the world. You've not done that yet. What's your take?
Well, I think we were chatting before, and you said,
Don't give it away that we've already spoken.
Okay. Well, I think you could, like, maybe Klarna is being used at our hotels today. But I think, like, with, again, transient leisure, there's obviously been a rise of wanderlust and people paying for things that they maybe can't afford. And I think there might be a lot of ethical use of that. But our general view is that like the consumer debt rates are really rising. The default rates on that consumer debt is quite high, and so we're not necessarily celebrating the ability to convert on people that probably shouldn't be paying for it. Now, that's obviously a draconian view. Obviously, some of the OTAs do it. Most of our competitors don't do it, and we haven't seen our direct percentage across our portfolio is close to 65% across all of our hotels. So we haven't seen a decline in or an impact on direct bookings by not offering that. But I'm not too bullish on buy now, pay later, and I'm probably the grandpa in the room when I say that.
So the opposite view to that would be where I'm sitting. So what we see at Stripe is that buy now, pay later is not without risks, but by the way, it is without risk to hotels. So hotels get paid in full straight away. We're seeing that there's a younger demographic, something like 52% of kind of millennials and Gen Z are like really keen to pay in this way. We're also seeing penetration in actually kind of upper middle class, kind of relatively affluent families who just want to kind of split payments. So conversion rates typically go up when you add buy now, pay later. Average order size also goes up when you offer buy now, pay later. And of course, the elephant in the room is that if someone is kind of, hey, I'm on an OTA, I'm also checking out the content on the direct website, like, and that is their preferred way to pay. Why would you want to lose that booking?
We will add it. I think that it just hasn't been as a high of a priority. And I kind of think of it as like, do I want to be a subprime mortgage lender? And even if it's economically interesting, it's not that exciting for me personally.
So I've recently got into the Acquired podcast, and there's an amazing episode on Visa that goes through the history of kind of debit cards and credit cards. People thought exactly the same thing about credit cards like 30, 40 years ago. There's like a woman on a TV interview is like, why would you encourage people to pay with a credit card for their Burger King? Like as if it's like this insulting thing that how dare you let people who don't have much money like pay on credit? So it's kind of it may be a generational shift as well.
I'm a grandpa and dinosaur, whatever you want to call it. But I think that's probably right. I think if we were in a more competitive landscape of bigger chain hotels, you have to fight for every competitive advantage you can get. I think we've got enough value propositions for our hotel owners that it just hasn't made it to the roadmap yet.
All right. Next theme, chargebacks. So I've definitely heard from people, hey, if I don't have a front desk, if I don't have someone physically giving me a card, signing it, under CCTV, like I might get done for chargebacks. So like, has that been a problem for you in this kind of Uber-style frictionless experience, and what are you doing about that?
It has been a problem, and again, thanks to you, we've connected with an AI product that enables automatic chargebacks and it connects into Stripe, so it's relatively straightforward, or automatic disputes. And so we're able to handle that with ease, because it actually was a problem until we connected on it, a manual, laborious problem. So yeah, I think there's a great solution today that didn't exist a few years ago. So again, thanks for that intro.
Got it. No, it's fine. So you go for the guest experience. It's not without risk, but actually on the back end, you can probably solve for it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. New channels. So we're talking about kind of fintechs getting into hotels, right? You know, people like Chase become a kind of new booking channel. What's your sense on like the explosion of channels and third-party bookings? Do you got a bit of a kind of strategy around kind of B2B and where that might go?
Again, it's unique, I think, to small hotels. But yeah, like small hotels are fighting for demand. We don't have the big, loyalty programs, demand bases that the chains have, and so we've candidly integrated with SiteMinder, so we can turn on all the channels that are integrated there. And I think that's our primary approach. A lot of these small independent hotels are just not even on. Sometimes they won't even be on Expedia, or they'll be on Booking but not Expedia because they don't like their rep at Expedia or something like that. And so turning on, I think the billboard effect is real, and we see that quite dramatically. I think Google's obviously disrupting that space pretty intensely. So I think it's important to be on a lot of channels, but I do think Google's taking over, and like meta search is more important to be sharp in than necessarily all of the OTA channels. I think that differs internationally, where we're not that prevalent.
Would you ever kind of constrain third-party volumes in order to try and kind of preference direct channels? Was there any like a channel you'd say no to, or are you pretty open?
No. At least at this point, I think meta search has been the biggest innovation. So, for those of you who don't know, meta search is Google, Kayak, et cetera, and TripAdvisor fundamentally. And so I think, again, in small, medium-sized hotels, PPC channels are really challenging for hoteliers to get across, because they have to pay for something and they don't know the attribution and the ROI on that. And so for us, I think that's been our big focus. And a lot of the demand is going to Google, at least in North America. We've got a bunch of hotels in Mexico where Google is not as prevalent and the OTAs are more prevalent. So no, we haven't been too cute with figuring out how to ice out certain channels. Our owners, by the way, even if you're paying a 20% commission, these small independent hotels are pretty empty, or like low occupancy Monday through Thursday, if you will. And so incremental demand is always worth acquiring.
Yeah. And so maybe could you shed some light on kind of some of the things you've done around Book Direct? Because I think that feels like a real asset that you'd be kind of building. Like what's worked? What are your numbers looking like?
Yeah, like I said, across our portfolio, it's roughly 65% direct. It's a little higher in the US. It's kind of, and it's highly correlated to the ADR, because in PPC channels, again, I'm probably preaching to the choir at this conference, but you're paying a fixed cost per click, and if the higher your ADR is, the more you can invest in that. So our revenue management system has done this automatically. So within the booking curve, the highest ADR and the highest demand is correlated to where we spend the most dollars in meta search. And so it's really orienting around spend marketing dollars when your prices are the highest and you have the highest chance of that conversion. And I think that's kind of the innovation that we're interested in on the marketing side, which hasn't really been done, I think, even in the chains. And so that has driven, I think, a lot of the direct bookings, and then making sure that the right incentives are there through that booking funnel and having the right trust signals through that booking journey on direct. Again, we've built our own booking engine. We sell that booking engine direct to customers, and it's super on brand as well. So, I hate to say the off-the-shelf booking engines tend not to be on brand. So you're on the hotel website, you love the brand, and then you go into Synexis, and it's like very white borders and two colors that maybe match and fonts. Ours is like super on brand, and so there's a lot of trust through that journey that ends up having a higher conversion rate once you land there.
Do payments play an influence on that, you think, kind of building that trust and like getting that final conversion?
Yes, because like I said, we have that Stripe trust signal on the credit card line item. I think that is where you get a lot of drop off. You're like, where am I giving my credit card information to? So trust signals in that checkout process are pretty crucial.
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, like if you go, we might even mystery shop LifeHouse now while we're chatting, but in addition to kind of being able to put in your credit card, and you've stripped it right back, right? So it really is just kind of credit card month CVV. There's a button called Link, which is powered by Stripe. And many of you probably use Shop Pay by Shopify. It's the same product, basically. If you've ever shopped on Stripe before, that could be an Airbnb or an Uber, or it could be a ChatGPT subscription, or it could be, where you do your fashion shopping. We remember your preferred ways to pay, and even if you've never been on that website before, we just send that kind of 6-digit to your phone, kind of one click, and you're done. What's really cool with it, we haven't got into pricing. We were going to talk a bit about pricing, is you can use it for credit cards, which is great, but you can also use it for our bank-to-bank products as well. So you can start taking payments directly from people's banks, which is pretty cool as well.
Yes.
Where's your head at with pricing? Because I think a lot of people do think that, hey, these new technology players, and Stripe's not the only one, it's just another cost for hotels. And you're a big efficiency guy, so...
Yeah, I mean, look, we integrate with Stripe Connect for the reason of trying to reduce our credit card permissions to our hotel owners. I think our hotel owners just look at the P&L and they're like, it's greater than 3.2%. You guys suck. It used to be 2.8%, 10 years ago. What's going on? For one, obviously, all transactions at our hotels, there's no cash, there's no ACH payment, so everything is done with a credit card, which is one component of it. But obviously, like cancellation rates post-COVID skyrocketed, and so we've actually worked again with your team to figure out how do we authorize cards but not charge them until after the refundable window has expired, so we don't have to pay commissions on cancellation or bookings. As it relates to pricing, yeah, I mean, I'm going to put that back in your court. How do hotels reduce their credit card commissions? And how can you help? Can I ask that?
You can ask that. We'll talk about your pricing afterwards. No, so look, the truth of the matter is prices are going up across the board, and the reason is we're kind of all to blame. Like, who likes their reward card, right? Who likes those extra points, those extra perks you get either for a particular merchant or even sports team? It could be Amex, could be anyone. Like, we all love those cards, and we're probably all guilty of them, but they are the most expensive cards. Like, in order to get our rewards for our free flights or future discounts, like, someone is paying an extra margin, and the extra margin is the hotels. So you've got this weird situation now with fintech. It's easier than ever for any company to spin up their own credit card program. And obviously, the hotels have been doing it for decades, and they're now multi-billion-dollar businesses. But you could have a LifeHouse credit card tomorrow, right? The shop down the road could have its own credit card tomorrow. These are kind of products that Stripe and hundreds of other fintechs are offering now. But those typically are the more expensive cards that consumers love to use on as bigger items as possible because of the points. So it's a problem that's not going to go away, and I think there is an education piece here of like, your credit card processing isn't going to get any lower because of the behavior that we all make as consumers. The big play that I think is going to come is pay by bank. So you may have seen it, you may have used it yourself, where you can be on a shop's checkout and it instantly fires up your banking site or your banking app, and then it's kind of one click, authorize this merchant, and then it spins back. In most countries, the cost of that is capped or it's very, very low. The trust is instantly there. They're doing a lot of work to make sure it's got similar guarantees now to credit cards, which is quite cool. So you're starting to see big retailers and travel companies will be doing the same, nudge people towards that way of behaving. It's pretty new for consumers, but the more we've made it look and feel like a credit card payment, the more kind of legitimacy and take-up it's got. The challenge will be like, how do you drive that mass adoption? When you're comparing it to a credit card that I've used for years, I know I get my points, but you're starting to see companies do really interesting things, which is actually if you pay by bank, we might give you a couple of points of discount. And so suddenly you go, that's actually kind of cool. Aer Lingus today launched with Revolut Pay, which is really interesting. But I think if I've seen the demo screen right, you get like a 1% discount if you pay by bank. So there's some really smart things I think you can start to do with that in your checkout.
Shouldn't it be like closer to 3% discount?
You can. It's completely up to the merchant.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be decided by the market. So like, what drives behaviour? Like for some people, it might be like, I don't know, 5% or whatever. But it could be really. I think there'll be a really interesting battleground as to pay by bank. Financial Connections is the Stripe product, and that's what like Airbnb and Uber have launched with. It's really popular in vacation rental. No surprise if you're getting a, I don't know, 5, 10, 20,000 pound villa.
Right.
You don't want to be putting that on. Well, you want to be putting it on your Amex, but the merchant doesn't. So
right.
I think that you'll see a lot more pay by bank.
Interesting.
There you go. Little pay by bank. Cool. Where are we going to go next? Right. I wanted to talk to you a bit about skeptics. So I'm sure there's no skeptics in the room. They're all going to go back tomorrow morning and think, right, we better start getting going with contactless check-in. But for much larger hoteliers who are sitting there thinking, well, you know what, you've got greater control over what the tech stack can be. You're not doing the kind of franchise model. You're also much much smaller versus these guys operating in lots of countries. What would be your message like?
Well, I mean, I empathize because, if we were to switch today, it'd be a lot harder than starting scratch when we did 7 years ago. But I think fundamentally, the question is when, and people should put it on their roadmap. I candidly think there are far bigger problems to solve, but yeah, I think that it is easier when you're starting from scratch, and I empathize with the big chains who it's going to be a big problem for. But it's crazy that it still exists, and I'm sure there's an easier way.
Yeah. Where would you start? Where do you think the biggest efficiencies or new revenue opportunities are? Are they like in the booking funnel? Is it at the front desk? Is it something about kind of scrapping back office?
I mean, I think most people, I stayed at a Marriott over the holidays and, went through the Synexus booking engine and all that. I think the biggest pain point is the check-in process still. Even using the Bonvoy app, it was like it didn't work. I had to call in to add it to my application, and then I had to still go to the front desk and wait, and they weren't even going to text me when my room was ready, blah, blah, blah. And so I think it's like that whole arrival experience is like super, super flawed, and I think enabling payments to help expedite that and make that more efficient. And this is a luxury hotel, so I feel like that's definitely the place to focus.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. So we're going to move into Q&A, so start kind of thinking of some really tricky questions, hopefully for Rami, but I'll allow you to ask a couple to me. I'll try and ask nothing about pricing on Stripe. But I guess one last question where people are kind of thinking of their questions, like what next from LifeHouse? Like what are we going to see? Like what are you most excited about 2024, 2025?
Yeah, we've launched our revenue management system about a year ago, and we have about 100 customers on that alone. It's taking over, it's like 40% of our revenue today. And again, for small independent hotels, I don't think you asked me this question, but again, the challenge is there's too many systems. And so an all-in-one revenue management system that does distribution, pricing, and meta search marketing is a huge win for these small independents. And so we've now launched internationally. We have customers overseas through our integration with Muse and Cloudbeds, and it's an amazing solution. And there's like a pretty seamless setup to setting up all these OTAs, and there's very much a set it and forget it product because these small independent hotels can't afford like a revenue manager to oversee it. And so it's been a great solution. We're excited about growing that. And part of that is a direct website, a booking engine that's branded, and so it is the entire funnel from, upper funnel, meta search, what have you, down to checkout. And again, we're seeing high 60% direct bookings across that as well.
Amazing. And it also feels like there's a real theme here around kind of partnerships. Don't have to do everything yourself. Like you've name checked, SiteMinder, Muse, Cloudbeds. Like they build full stack solutions. That means hoteliers don't have to spend all of their time doing tech. So the hotels can just get on with guest experience and looking after their staff and building their teams.
Yeah, I mean, even when we started 7 years ago, Muse, for one, because I think they're in the audience somewhere, was not even in the US. And so I think the opportunity now is exactly that. It's leveraging off-the-shelf systems that have done great things, that are just kind of widgets. And you plug all those together and you make it seamless for the end user. I think the challenge is there are so many little widgets that becomes quite complicated, and so we're trying to partner with them all and to make it feel like one solution to the end user.
Yeah, makes sense. Cool, very cool. Thanks for your time, and we'll get on some questions, some bits and pieces. Anyone got a question? Don't be shy.
Does anyone have a question?
Thank you very much. David Cabreza from XanderPay. Having previously worked for some of the large chains who've been trying to implement a lot of these payment innovations and have had challenges, you very correctly identified that. Question for you with LifeHouse. Are you the merchant of record, or is it the properties that are in all of these transactions?
Good question. We are with our Stripe connection, but some of our properties are not on Stripe Connect. In that case, it's the underlying hotel. And then for our revenue management system, it's not us as well. And either it's Muse or it's Stripe.
Yeah, I think the merchant of record question is a really interesting one. So I spent a lot of time in a major hotel chain looking at kind of the booking flow and what you can do with payments. I think things have moved on a lot, and you now have kind of marketplace technology with Stripe Connect where you can create an amazing kind of B2C experience with cards, installments, Apple Pay, Google Pay, buy now, pay later, whatever you want. And the hotels each spin up a kind of like virtual bank account, like a mini Stripe account. So those funds immediately go to the hotel, and the hotel is merchant of record. And I think when I was looking at it, even in like 2018, that technology wasn't even a thing or wasn't where it is now. So I think that's just an education piece. If I look at other industries like Hertz or Ford, they have exactly the same issue, right? Ford want to do great world-class retailing on their site for the first time. They've got to compete with Tesla and people coming out the gate with that kind of direct-to-consumer retailing. But the dealership has to be merchant of record. So it's exactly the same kind of tech that we're rolling out in hotel chains, where you go, right, you're going to have a customer experience, you're going to have a chance to capture the payment, but really, it's the dealership that's doing the transacting. So you can do some really magical stuff behind the scenes, and it's all really, really simple. So just for clarity, like the merchant of record debate is kind of a non-debate now when it comes to can you even offer these online new ways of doing things. You absolutely can in a kind of franchise managed ecosystem where the hotels it's just a red line. They have to stay merchant of record, and I think everyone gets that.
I think also our hotel management agreements are such that they're quite flexible in that regard, whereas I think some of the more institutionally owned hotels with like really rigid lenders restrict some of the bank accounts and flow of funds that we don't have to experience.
Yep. All right. You look well prepared with questions, Lisa.
Actually, so thank you guys very much for your time. And now I have a microphone, so we're all in big trouble. Really great conversation. I don't know if I'm required or supposed to say this, but I want to remind everyone of our head to code of conduct so that we're being kind to one another. So if you're not familiar with that, you can find it on the website or in the app. All of this talk about...
Are we in trouble?
You're definitely on the naughty list. No, I'm kidding. I don't remember if it was said today, so it just jumped into my mind. But there's no front desk staff. There's no operational staff, back end. How many guests, how do you deal with guests that are not interested in checking in online or working through their mobile device to get into their room and that kind of experience?
Well, it's a holistic value proposition we offer, and so we do have, for example, like $700 ADR hotels in Nantucket with the average age demographic north of 50. And in some of those hotels, we have like old school manual keys because they're quite cute and quaint, and it's quite expensive to replace entire doors. In that environment, again, there is a human in the property. We call them a house manager. It's basically a front desk agent converted into a manager on duty. And so they're there to support those types of guests as well. And so guest arrives, haven't checked in, don't even look at my email, where's the front desk? And so we make we've built an iPad application that has the branding of the hotel. So there's a content management system. It feels embedded into the hotel's design ethos. And it's built into like millwork or something. So it's pretty. It's not like I can't say Citizen M, but like it doesn't feel techy. And I love what CitizenM's doing, so forgive me there. And so it feels on brand, and it's not too disruptive. And that person with the iPad can also just manually check them in and hand them the key. And so we have that for where that demographic does exist, because at the end of the day, again, demand is the primary objective for these hotels. Sorry for the long-winded answer.
I'd also say there's some really cool, again, it's about kind of keeping up with really fun innovation that's coming out. So Apple last year, and Google have had it for a little while now. So all of the devices we're carrying in our pockets can be payment devices. I'm not talking about like paying with it, we all hopefully get that now, but they all have the technology to actually take payment. So we're starting to work with some of our tech platforms to put a staff app on there, or just add it to the staff app you've already got. So this theme of untethering, like you don't need to have someone running off to the terminal in the corner. You can just be in the lounge or in their suite, or at the pool, and you're able to take payments there and then. And I think for me, it enhances the hospitality experience, because you don't get these big screens that people are hiding behind. It's like, can I just confirm, Lisa, is this your reservation? Brilliant. Do you want to add anything to it? Great. It's a really transparent process. One click, and then they just literally can tap it and take a payment, or even phone-to-phone payments. It's starting to feel a bit like sci-fi, but this stuff's available now. Alaska Airlines has just gone live with Stripe for all of their in-flight, right? Because terminals have so many problems, but it's really easy to drop an app on the device of all the staff and just be like, let's just take payments as we go.
We've taken the payment already, so there's actually no need for them to get their wallet out in that circumstance, and maybe that's reducing conversion, the fact that it's taking all of the payment up front. But even when we do group bookings and we have a director of sales on property, our director of sales goes on our website and just plugs in the booking with the appropriate discount code. Or like a wedding, we don't do room blocks. Maybe, again, because I haven't been married, that's a big pain point that I should solve for. But instead, it's like discount codes, and everyone has a finite period of time, and we kind of can measure that occupancy accordingly. And so everything is kind of done through the online, our direct website in that respect.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep going otherwise.
Oh, there's one in the back. Yeah.
I'm just curious, quick question. Do you consider yourself more of a hotel brand or a technology company? Follow on after that.
Sure. In short, we're a hotel management company with a software product that we sell, and we do have a consumer brand as well. We have 8 or 9 properties, I forget actually, I should know that, that are branded LifeHouse. So we kind of do everything. I hate for the cop-out answer, but follow on.
Keeping those plates spinning, if technology became much more of a capital opportunity and a necessity, do you think you might separate, or do you see it as one DNA kind of thing?
It is one DNA because, not to have the identity crisis that WeWork or Sonder, et cetera, have, but at the end of the day, we're solving for hotel owner problems, and their problems are pretty consistent. They want a less complicated operation, and they want more money, and all of our solutions solve for that. And our investors want us to be focused on the tech because it's a higher multiple, of course. But I think fundamentally, there's a lot of trust we build by using the software on our own hotels, because we're constantly innovating to solve our own problems. So there's a great alignment of interest there. And I think that the software is exciting because it's it's easier to sell and to build, and there's less people in the equation, which is just nice in general. But fundamentally, I think they're hyper related to each other, and I'm interested in all of those things.
Hi, my name is Aisha from Prime Travel Bedsopia. I have a question for Rami. If one thing you could change about the payment method, what would it be? What's your dream? I wish it was this payment method for the future. This is my dream. Or is there something officially right now you would like to? I'm doing it, but because everyone else is doing it, I just have to do it. Is there anything like that?
I don't see payments as a huge problem unless you're like super archaic, but like we were actually joking around beforehand because I'm not convinced on the value of Apple Pay integration. Watch out for tomatoes. But we went through the experience side by side. We don't have Apple Pay integrated in our booking engine, but my credit card information is stored in Chrome, and virtual Amex, spins up a new card, et cetera, and then there's Stripe one-click. And so I think that as long as the credit card information is stored, it's either one click in like 1 second or one click and double click and Face ID in half a second. So I'm not that bothered by either of those experiences. I think the bothering experience is really like arrive to a hotel and whip out a credit card and swipe it and sign something and look at the new numbers and does it add up to what I thought I paid before, or get a resort fee surprise and all that stuff. I think those are the things that just absolutely need to be eliminated, but I think just basic e-commerce checkout flow, pay for something, arrive and get what you paid for is like should be the norm.
Yeah, I also think, unfortunately, it's not up to us to even dictate it. Like, there are going to be so many more ways that customers want to pay, and a lot of those in fintech are also building their own channels effectively. I don't know how familiar you are with Klarna, much bigger in Europe, but increasingly in the US. Like, for many young people, that is its own like online shopping mall. You go into the Klarna app, and from there they have a whole travel page, and so it's a legitimate channel that people might choose to book through. We're seeing that more and more as even the banks are kind of becoming travel agents as well. And obviously they're all going to bias towards their own payment products, whether it be like the rise of Cash App in the US or WeChat or Alipay. Like, why shouldn't you have a checkout which lets people pay however they want, and ideally knows how people want to pay ahead of time to give them like just less steps they have to click through. So unfortunately, it's not going to be up for us, and I think we just need to have a lot more payment methods on our websites. If you go to most retail websites, they have just a ton of different ways to pay now, and hotels is one of the few industries where it's credit cards or nothing unless you're on an OTA.
You think it'll be a divergence and then a consolidation, or do you think it'll continue going out?
I think it's going to keep diverging because a lot of people care about payments. Banks, governments, you're going to start seeing kind of digital currencies from most of the national governments, right? No one's going to tell them not to do that. But I think you'll also see really clear dominance of things like Google Pay and Apple Pay as well, which again, for those, who uses Apple Pay or Google Pay, just as a show of hands? Cool. So we're all pretty familiar with it. It's not a payment type, right? It is a layer of technology. You're still paying with your card that you've got saved, or soon it'll be more and more bank payments, and then there's just a few cents charge. So I think those kind of things will become more common. So I think the Apple, Google, Amazon, of course, could do some really interesting things that become a bit more ubiquitous.
Bitcoin?
I mean, no one's talking about crypto anymore. I think Stripe used to take crypto as a currency, and I think we're still probably exploring whether we should. But the demand has gone away, and I think the sense that it's going to become mass market has definitely gone away. But again, I'm sure in time, ultimately, I guess Stripe's point of view is if you can prove a portion of people want to pay this way, you should probably offer it. And there's kind of a threshold of we should offer it. I was talking to Rami about we work with a lot of airports who are increasingly trying to get you to buy stuff in advance, whether that be retail or order your F&B, book a lounge, or obviously book parking is a big one. This airport was like, every time we turn on another payment method with Stripe, we make more money. And I couldn't believe that people use buy now, pay later to pay for parking. But he's like, they do. And so it's not up to him to say, that's not the right thing to do. His job is I need to drive revenues to this airport and utilize our parking. So he turned on Apple Pay and Google Pay, it went up. He turned on Buy Now, Pay Later, it went up. I was like, fair enough. So it's a bit of it feels like a debate that's kind of already been had.
I'm a dinosaur.
Yeah.
I hear a lot about what the hospitality industry is doing or isn't doing, or doing right or doing wrong, and my question is, do you see an industry that's doing it right, and what can the hotel world learn from that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're all kind of learning from retail, right? If you think about, I mean, Amazon probably the easiest one to talk about, but most e-commerce retailers obsess about this stuff all the time. That's pretty straightforward. It's like you buy something, it ships out the warehouse the next day, so relatively low fraud, relatively low risk. Travel's inherently more complicated because you typically pay for something and then you actually fulfill it, you get it, your trip's a bit later. the ecosystem, I think, is the real complexity in travel of like these huge franchise networks around the world, these huge kind of management networks with like independently owned properties that want to do things their own way under a kind of global umbrella. So who's doing that right? I'd say a couple of big Stripe customers are Hertz, who, again, they're doing exactly this. They just turned on Apple Pay this month. But basically, you get exactly the same consumer experience wherever you are in the world, and they've gone from just taking cards to taking kind of all kinds of local payment methods. But they don't want to be merchant of record. They literally just pass those funds. Every dealership in the world gets its own mini Stripe account. And they get their own dashboard. They can see what they're owed. They can see when they get paid. Franchise fees get split. So you can toggle who's going to be merchant of record. Sometimes it's Hertz because they might own the location. Sometimes it's an independent operator. I think that's a really good example. And then I think car dealerships, which I mentioned, the likes of your Fords and your Lotus cars, they've all had to get really savvy about online sales, whereas 10 years ago, it was all dealership led. But dealers, like hotel owners, are incredibly powerful ownership bodies. And they're not just going to roll over and be like, sure, you just do it all yourself. They're like, no. I understand there needs to be a great B2C experience, but we still need to be the merchant of record. We want to finish up the transaction. We need all the data. We need all the reporting. And so that's kind of how they've chosen to set up Stripe, where, again, every Ford dealer has a Stripe account. They also have terminals, so you can kind of finish the payment. But the whole company gets the same view of the customer. And in dealerships, that's more important than ever because more and more with things like EV, you might have a subscription for it, or you might have a servicing plan. And the way that the economics of that industry are changing if you're a geek like I am, in a really interesting way. But at its heart, it's about payments and the movement of money across ecosystems that are owned by different groups.
So that's a great segue into another question for Rami. Have you thought about expansion into Europe and other parts of the world? I mean, what works in the States doesn't necessarily work for Europe, doesn't necessarily work for Asia Pac. So, thoughts?
Not a great answer, but in short, because payments are complex internationally, we've partnered with Muse to support on payments. So we have a completely different approach internationally. We don't have that many customers internationally, but fundamentally understand it's complex, so have stayed out of it for now and leverage Muse, a PMS for that. And they use Stripe, so.
They do use Stripe. And ultimately, again, so Stripe's in 60-odd countries today, and growing internationally shouldn't be any more threatening than growing in the US, frankly. Like, there are slightly different trends, but the core principle remains is like, are you offering the ways to pay that will convert the best? So in Germany, PayPal and GiroPay are massive. In Poland, it's Blick. In Holland, it's Ideal. But you can work with one tech partner whose job it is to help you automatically toggle and configure all of those with one click. So it's not an insurmountable problem, I don't think. My take.
Just can't do everything at once, so
Yeah.
it'll be on the roadmap in the future.
Yeah.
All, just not all at once.
Yeah.
Other questions? Anyone else?
We're holding people from lunch, I think.
That's it. I think we're sitting, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. So, James, Rami, thank you for your time. Thank you for your input. If there are no other questions, I think we'll break for lunch. If there's anyone involved in the payment discipline group, we're going to remain here for about 10 or 15 minutes and put our heads together, so you're welcome to join us. Or if you haven't gotten involved and you'd like to join us, please do so. So, thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining me.